Hey everybody, Allie Bloyd here, and today I really want to go through my story. This is something that I honestly don't talk about that much. I try and make the content that I produce helpful and valuable for business owners like me and like you, but I don't necessarily feel like I need to talk a lot about myself in order to do that. However, I've had a lot of people recently asking me, really, what is my story? How did I get to where I am? What were the struggles and challenges that I encountered along the way? And I thought this would be a great opportunity to really go through that and talk about why I do what I do, but also the different stages of my career and my business that have really led to where I am today. So ultimately, this all started for me really when I was about in middle school. So I was probably 12 years old, and my mom and my stepdad had started a real estate investment company. So they were buying rental properties, they were fixing them up, renting them out, and it was working really, really well for them. And I actually, was able to help them out as kind of my first ever job. So they would pay me to do the grunt work on these properties. So I'd be cleaning up all the disgusting trash that were left inside of these properties. I would mow the lawns, I would paint, I would clean, whatever I could do to earn extra money. So I've always been a really, really hard worker, even from my very early years. I loved making money and I was willing to do whatever it took to make money. So seeing them grow that business was an awesome experience for me as a young person, but also the work ethic and the real understanding of kind of how finances worked was very, very interesting and beneficial. However, in 2007, 2008, when the market crashed, my mom and my stepdad lost everything. They were severely impacted by what had happened, and that in part has really shaped my views on big finance and on a lot of these pieces of legislation that come out that are really designed, at least they're told to people that they're designed to help, but in fact they really, really hurt. And so that experience has definitely shaped me and my belief system long term, seeing my parents who did nothing wrong. They followed the system that was laid out for them. They invested their personal assets in trying to build something from scratch, really creating their own American dream, so to speak. And then, because of corrupt financial institutions doing the wrong things, they had everything taken from them. And that was really, really hard for me to see. And it was hard for me to understand at the time. So I was 17 or 18 when that took place. And I had just gone off to college. But they really were put in a very bad situation. They had to sell their home. They were not able to own another home for, I think it was 7 years. And, these were people who took so much pride in their home and in the work they had done on these other homes to give other families the ability to have something that they could call their own and really a nice place to live, even in some areas that didn't have a ton of really great options for renting if you were a family. So that was pretty devastating for them. They have absolutely been able to overcome all of those challenges since, thankfully. But that was hard for me to see. And it also really just showed me in so many ways that, you can't put your life or your finances or your business at the mercy of some of these systems that are in place, because ultimately the rug can just be ripped out from under you. And so initially I was actually in school to be a nurse or a doctor. I thought I might be an anesthesiologist or a nurse practitioner. So that is what the first 2 years of my college education really consisted of. But I had a really good friend at the time whose mom got diagnosed with breast cancer. And I visited her a lot in the hospital and really just realized at that point that I couldn't do it. I couldn't work in that environment, not only because I am a very empathetic person. The challenges and the struggles of other people impact me really deeply. I didn't believe that emotionally I would be able to handle everything that I would see working in that environment, but also really just the environment itself. It was very blah and bland. Everyone wore the same thing. You couldn't even paint your nails. There was a lack of individuality and color and creative aspects to that work environment and what was expected of you as, an employee. So at that time, I really didn't know what I was going to do. I knew it wasn't that. That had been something that people really throughout my life had encouraged me to pursue. I was very strong in science. I was very strong in math. But ultimately, despite my strong interest in those subjects, I knew that it was not the best fit for me personally for a career that I was going to be doing throughout my life. So I took a semester off college at that point to really try and figure out what it was that I wanted to do. I didn't want to waste any more money or any more time pursuing a degree in something I knew for a fact at that point was not the right fit for me. And in that process, I randomly got this business idea. So as I was in school, I always had this tendency to think of things that I wanted to create for myself, but I never really knew that I was an entrepreneurial person for a very long time. I also never really considered myself an artistic person necessarily, despite the fact that I'd been writing poetry and coming up with commercial songs and jingles since I was about 5 years old. I had a brother that was an artist. He is amazing at drawing and painting, and he's currently a tattoo artist. And I always kind of compared my artistic and creative ability to him. And compared to him, I felt that I did not get that artistic gene. But in having this business idea, it was actually for a dog clothing company. And I actually still think to this day that it is an amazing idea that someone should do. I would like to do it at some point. I have not had time to, come back around to that. But I was very committed to this business idea for a long time. And this was something that was going to require graphic design. So I bought a graphic design program. It was called Corel Draw. And I started trying graphic design for the very first time in my life. I actually was not a very technical person in terms of technology, computer programs. I really did not have much experience with it outside of, writing Word docs for college essays and things like that. And through that experience, I fell in love with graphic design. I realized that this was where my artistic ability was able to shine because I was able to take a mix of words, which I believe very strongly in the power of words, and mix them with different types of imagery for logos, slogans, for these different designs that I was making for these dog clothes. And so through that, I realized, okay, well, I'm going to need a website. I'm going to need to learn how to sell things online. And so I really started to dig into that. And I happened to see a commercial one day that was promoting a college in my city that had a graphic design and marketing program. And I really just started to think that maybe this is what I should be doing. I knew that the world was going in a technological direction, and I thought that there would definitely be job security in learning these technical skills. Everyone my whole life had always told me, oh, be a nurse, be a doctor, you'll make great money, and you'll always have job security. And those were things that were important to me. But I knew that I had to find it in some other industry at that point. So I decided to re-enroll and focus for the remaining 2 years of my degree on graphic design and marketing, which was probably one of the best decisions of my life. So I'm very thankful for that school and for that degree that I was able to get because truthfully, I use those skills and that knowledge every single day in what I do now. So during the course of that program, I just had so many different ideas of things I wanted to do. And I really realized that I wanted to start a creative agency. So I actually thought that I would end up doing more of a branding agency. I love logo design. I love name creation, logo creation, slogans, all of those different things, and really putting together a complete package of compelling visuals that tell a story at a glance. And so that was something that was really on my mind at the time, but I didn't know exactly what would happen after. I just knew that starting some sort of agency was definitely a priority for me. While I was in school, I was required to get an internship in my final 2 semesters. And I was connected with a guy who ran a company locally that did trade magazines for different industries, which were all smaller local businesses. So the concept of these publications was that you create a strong content heavy publication, and they would focus on things like sales, marketing, technology, leadership, and management. We would have all of these articles written by a lot of industry experts, and we purchased mailing list that we would then distribute these magazines to that list for free. The way the company made money was by selling advertising in that magazine to businesses who wanted to reach those business owners. So they had magazines in a couple of different industries, and I originally started off helping with graphic design and with writing and with some of the social media marketing for the company and the publications. So over the course of my work with them, my boss came to me one day and said, "Hey, we want to start a brand new magazine for a new industry that we've never been in before." And that was for the jewelry industry. So these magazines would be going to the local jewelry stores across the US and Canada. And we would be selling advertising to jewelry manufacturers, jewelry designers, different businesses that serve the jewelry stores. And he said, "I'd really like for you to try and sell. I think that you would be really good at selling advertising. And I wanted to know if you wanted to give that a shot." At that point, I thought that I was the most anti-salesperson alive. I had no interest in being this salesy person. But when he mentioned the commission structure, I was a lot more interested. Obviously, I was, just serving and bartending. I was making some money at this internship, but not very much. And again, I'd always been very driven by ways to make money. And so I said, "Hey, you know what? I'll give it a try. If it doesn't work out, I'll just stop and I can keep doing what I'm already doing." So we'll see. I was able to really understand that sales is nothing more than relationships and communication. And I've always been pretty good at both of those things. I really enjoy talking to people. I love helping people, and I like to have conversations. I definitely like to have conversations about business. So it was something that became pretty second nature to me. And I actually started using LinkedIn for the sales aspect of this publication. That was really my first experience with social media marketing and social selling, was using LinkedIn to connect with these kind of high profile jewelry business executives, pitch them on advertising in a magazine that did not yet exist. So that was also something that I learned at the time that didn't really realize how it would play into my life moving forward. And that's pre-selling something to determine if there is even a value in creating it. Because if we couldn't get advertisers to buy into this concept, then there was really no point of moving forward and trying to print this publication. So we were going to sell as much as we could sell to cover all of the costs of printing and everything like that. If we made it to that point, we would launch the magazine. Obviously, we wanted to make more than that so we could go ahead and start being profitable from the very first issue. So not only did I learn how to sell, but I basically single-handedly sold enough advertising to launch this magazine from the ground up. I also did the magazine layout. I wrote articles. I did interviews with some of these jewelry store owners to do our success story pieces. And I did the online marketing and the website. So this was really a labor of love for me. And it was my first taste of entrepreneurship. Even though it was not my business, it was something that I was starting from scratch, that I was able to build from the ground up and really see that if you do what you need to do, you can create something from nothing, and you're really in control of your own financial destiny. So with the ideas I'd already have and the interest in entrepreneurship that I'd already had, this was really kind of a turning point in my life. And I loved it. I was very committed to this. And over time, the owner of that company they knew that I was doing virtually everything for that specific magazine. They were still working on the other magazines they were already producing, but this was really something that was basically all on me at that point. And so the owner had promised me an ownership stake in this specific magazine. And over time, I really just started to worry that that was not actually going to take place. I tried to get things in writing, and that did not happen. And then there were some weird things with the commissions. So, commissions not being paid. I was able to look into the finances, and I realized that, hey, we're profitable, everything's going well. So why are my commissions not being paid as they should have been, even when I'm really the only one that is actually selling and producing this magazine? So that became something that I had to address. And initially, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do because this was something I had poured my heart and soul into. And I knew that if I walked away, I'd be walking away from that forever. I would no longer have any role in that, and I'd be starting from scratch once again. But there came a time where I had to do that. So I did walk away from that magazine. It was a very, very difficult decision. I was owed thousands and thousands of dollars in commission, and I actually was able to find a lawyer who was willing to represent me for free and was only going to get paid if I got paid from a settlement or in a trial case. Ultimately, I was able to win that suit, and that took about 3 years. So that was actually really great life experience in regards to having documentation, making sure that nothing in business is said or done without evidence to back it up. And that's something that has actually served me really, really well up until this point in my business. I still do that today. It's very important for me to have proof of communications, of discussions, things like that. And that's really, something that taught me a lot about ethics in business, and that you can be very close to someone and think that someone really values you. But at the end of the day, a lot of times people are not really going to act morally in terms of what they do. And they're not always willing to do what they say they will. And I am not at all like that. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. I would never go back on my word. It's very, very important to me. But I realized that, not everyone in life and business is like that. So again, it was a negative experience in some ways, but it taught me so much about business and life. And it gave me the confirmation that I needed to know that I wanted to start a business for myself. So at that time, I had just met the guy who is now my husband, and we started to, talk about different business ideas. And we tried to start a wedding business actually that was live streaming weddings to friends and family. So this could be destination weddings or weddings where maybe there were a lot of people out of town who couldn't make it. And we did think that this was a really great idea, and it could have been, but at that time technology changed and we had access to things like Skype and, more one-to-many live streaming platforms. And so we knew, hey, these different tools are really going to make this business irrelevant. So we decided to stop and figure something else out. Well, at that time, I was still serving, I was still bartending. I did that for a really long time through high school and college. And I did know that I needed something to continue on in my career. If I wasn't going to start something right away, I needed to find a job. So I ended up becoming a marketing director for a roofing and restoration company in the local area. I was able to do a lot of great things for that business. However, I once again encountered a very unethical owner. That business ended up filing bankruptcy, screwing over most of their employees, a lot of their clients. I'm very glad that I walked away when I did. I saw the writing on the wall and said, I'm not going to be a part of that. I don't want anything to do with that type of management or ownership or operation. Very sketchy things going on inside of the company. And I actually was thankful that I had formed a relationship with the female CFO of that company. And she was in a very similar position. She saw these things that were very unethical and unusual. And she kind of warned me, hey, I think something's not right here. So, I would be looking for another job if I were you. And so that is ultimately what I did. So I ended up becoming the marketing director for a remodeling company, kitchen and bath design, kitchen and bath remodeling. And then they also had a retail store that sold different remodeling products to the public and to builders and contractors. So I was actually in the process of remodeling my home from top to bottom. And so it was something I was very, very interested in at the time. I'd also had those years of experience with my parents' real estate investment company. So I loved real estate. I loved remodeling and construction, and I knew a lot about it. And my personal interest was very strong at the time because of the full scale remodel that we were doing on my home. I loved that business and I really grew in so many different ways. So I was there for about 4 or 5 years and was able to understand the challenges that businesses of that size, because they were doing 8 figures per year, they were, a successful local business. I understood the challenges that were going on internally from a marketing and sales perspective, as well as, just a management and operations perspective, a lot of different things going on. It was also retail and service based. So I got a lot of great experience on both ends of the spectrum, which still serves me very well to this day. But my experience at the magazine, working with these small businesses, working with a lot of local restaurants and bars, I was very much a small business advocate. I do not support a lot of corporate entities. While I don't think that every corporate business is bad, I think that most of them are unethical. I think that a lot of them are not doing things in the best interest of their employees or their consumers. They're doing things in their own interest or the interest of their stockholders. And I don't think that that is really good for society as a whole. So I always knew that I wanted to do something with local businesses. But after the magazine and, working as a marketing director for these local companies, that desire was stronger than ever. In about 2015 is when I really started to get involved with Facebook advertising for that company that I was the marketing director for. And I educated myself every single day on all of the new technologies, the different forms of advertising. I tested loads of strategies to find out what worked. I learned about funnels in, I think, 2017 maybe. And I just really started to implement everything that I had learned, test things, see what worked, see what didn't, figure out how I could create a recurring appointment generating system for this business, for their high ticket services like kitchen and bath design and installation and the selling of those products, and also creating strategies for the sale of their retail products. So I was able to develop my live event system when I was at that business. And that's something that I still help businesses with to this day. And that's really where I created, tested, and perfected my methods that are still working in 2021, almost 2022. However, the coronavirus pandemic has changed things just a little bit on that front. But it was really great experience. The owner of that company became a business mentor for me, and I strongly appreciate all of the guidance and advice and information that he gave me over the years. I learned a lot more than I would have because of him and him taking a personal interest in really educating me on the business side, more than just the marketing stuff, but really the way that the business ran as a whole. And so in 2018, I decided, hey, I need to go out on my own. This was something that, as I mentioned, I'd been wanting to do for a really long time. And, I got married, I had a house that I was paying for, and I think life just happens. And we kind of put our desires on the back burner sometimes. But I knew at that point that I was not going to be truly happy or fulfilled until I took the leap and started my business. And I had my daughter in January of 2018. That was actually something that, I never really knew that I wanted. I actually thought most of my life I would never have kids and that it would stop me from achieving my professional goals or stop me from traveling or all of these things. And ironically, her birth was kind of the catalyst for me finally going out on my own. I built my website for Allie Bloyd Media on maternity leave while she was nursing on my lap. And it really just showed me that, if I'm going to teach my daughter that she can follow her dreams and do anything that she wants to do, I've got to be doing that. I've got to be following my own dreams. And I also realized, how much time I was going to be missing with her by working for someone else 40 hours a week. I had, about an hour and a half or more of a commute every single day, and it was a lot. So I was only able to see her really for, maybe about 2 hours a day. Because of, the fact that babies go to sleep pretty early. And that was just not good enough for me. I knew I needed something that would allow me to have a lot more freedom to see my daughter, spend time with my family. So luckily, when I finally made that decision in early 2018 that I was going to start my business, I really started marketing myself as if I already had this business. So I did incorporate myself already. Obviously, I could do freelance projects and still take on other clients and do work outside of what I was doing full time. But that really was a benefit for me because when I was finally ready to take the leap and go full time into my business, I had already established a presence. I had already established a name for myself and a base of clients to start working with. And the way that I did that was primarily through organic marketing on Facebook and Instagram and utilizing Facebook groups. So I wasn't spamming myself in these different Facebook groups, telling people to work with me. I was really providing value. I was answering questions that other people had. I was posting about insights that I'd found through the work that I was already doing, the strategies that were working, things that weren't working. And that was very, very valuable because I did have a group of people who at that point already knew what I did. They already knew the types of businesses that I worked with. And when I did go full time, I really had a leg up because it was not at that point that I was starting from scratch. I had really kind of laid the foundation already. So when I asked my previous employer, how he would feel about transitioning to a client, I didn't know how that conversation was going to turn out. I knew that I potentially would not be able to do that, but I was hoping that we would be able to come to an arrangement on that. And luckily we were. That arrangement gave me a ton of flexibility to be able to really go full time in my business without a lot of fear or anxiety because I was able to keep my existing salary. And while my tax structure was going to change and all of those expenses that I needed every month were now going to come out of my own pocket, I was able to get other clients as well so that by the time I went full time, I was making more than I had in my previous position. And I continued on with the same organic methods early on that had worked for me up until that point to kind of establish myself and get my first couple of clients. So most of my initial clients did come from connections built through Facebook groups and organic posting. So there comes a time where obviously that isn't really going to cut it anymore. You can grow very significantly through organic methods, but if you're trying to grow aggressively, which I was, you can't rely on that. It's not predictable enough. And I also knew that the systems that I had in place at that time were becoming a little bit overwhelming. So my initial business model was 100% agency. So I was doing done for you monthly retainer based services for small local businesses, running Facebook and Instagram ads, building funnels, email marketing, things of that nature. But I really was working so much more than I wanted to be. And going back to, what we talked about in my younger years, I've always worked a lot. I was working probably 50 to 60, maybe more hours per week most of my life. I was used to working a lot, but I was really getting tired of having to work a lot. I was working all day, and then I would stop and spend time with my daughter and my family. And then I was working again at night, sometimes, between 9 and 1 a.m., trying to get things done. And it was not sustainable. And I knew that, but I really wanted to do the best possible job for the clients I was working with. I feel a really significant responsibility when someone pays me money for something to do what I've said I'm going to do and to do the very best job that I can for them. I knew that I needed to establish a growing team and I didn't know which positions I needed to hire first. I didn't know how to systemize the process of fulfillment in a way that would take a lot of pressure off of me. And I was also spending a lot of time doing sales calls on top of it. So that was another thing that was really just taking hours out of my typical workday. And I was doing some of those things that I couldn't get to at night. So I ended up hiring my first coach, and James Smiley was that first coach. And I am still good friends with James to this day. We actually do a bi-weekly Bible study together with a couple of other marketers in the industry. And so he was really great. But, for me, I think the biggest benefit of that was simply paying the money for coaching. And I know that sounds a little bit weird, but I have always been a really frugal person in my personal finances. I was always very budget conscious. So when I went into business for myself, that was something that I was struggling with, the ability to invest in my business without anxiety or fear or feeling that it was the same as my personal finances. And so that investment, just simply letting go of that money, was so valuable to me. And it allowed me from that point on to really invest in my business heavily and freely and easily. And so I learned a ton from James, but his program was not necessarily designed for agencies specifically. And then I found my next coach probably about 8 months after I signed up with James, and I got started in his coaching program, which was very specific to agencies and really about setting up systems that would free you from the business. So what I started to realize as I went through that program, which was great, but I realized that that model was removing yourself from the agency essentially, so that you were just kind of the CEO and you weren't doing the marketing, you weren't doing the calls, you weren't doing the fulfillment. You had a team that was doing it. And I realized at that point that, that's not actually what I want. I really love marketing. I love working with clients on their marketing, but the way in which I was working with them was not necessarily something that I wanted to continue doing. I knew that my model had to shift a bit. And then I had a great opportunity to go on a couple of really, really big marketing podcasts to talk about my strategies and the things that I'd created and implemented and learned. And my coach at the time felt that I had a lot of opportunity to work with other marketers. I had a lot of other marketers and agency owners reaching out to me frequently to ask for advice and tips and wanting to work with me in some way, yet I did not have anything to offer them. What I was doing at that time was really only for small business owners or local business owners. I had nothing that I really could give to a marketer. And so he really encouraged me to consider starting a coaching program. I really just decided that, hey, I paid this person for coaching. And if they think that this is a great option for me, then I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to give it my all and see what happens. And this was something that I lined up with a big podcast episode that was going to be launching. It was my first time being on the social media marketing podcast. And, I've been on the social media marketing podcast about 3 times now. I've done their social media marketing talk show about a dozen times. It feels like I have a very great working relationship with Social Media Examiner. And I've, grown a really close personal friendship with Mike Stelzner, the founder of Social Media Examiner. So, that was really the beginning of all of it, that first podcast episode that I recorded with him. And so I wanted to make sure that the launch of this program was in line with when that was going to be released so that I could generate as many opt-ins for my free 5-day challenge, which was my launch strategy for the coaching program, through the traffic that I was going to receive from the podcast, which turned out to be a great move. It worked very, very well. And I launched my first round of local marketing mastery, which at the time was a 9-week implementation program. So the goal was, in 9 weeks, let's get your entire social marketing system set up. Your offer, your funnels, your email and text marketing follow-up, your automations, your pipeline, and your ads. Let's get this launched in 9 weeks. So that was the offer. It was a $5,000 program at the time. And I was able to invest. I spent about $2,000 on my own personal ads. It was actually the first time I'd run ads for my own business. And there was definitely a little anxiety there, but obviously I've done Facebook advertising for a long time. And at that point, I'd been doing it for years, just not for myself with ad spend out of my own pocket. So it did feel a little bit scarier, but from $2,000 in ad spend plus going very heavy on organic, I was able to make $60,000 from that initial launch in really just a couple of weeks. And that was something that really changed everything for me, definitely in terms of my model and my mindset. So I got a really great group of business owners to join that program. I helped them work through setting up their systems. I didn't actually have anything prepared outside of my resources for that program. We recorded the calls live. So I would do 2 live master classes per week and then 1 Q&A call. And then over time, I realized, okay, 9 weeks, it's just not enough time for some people, especially if they had any other commitments going on in that time frame that would take them away from the program even for a week. Because it was so short, it was going to be significant in terms of preventing them from maybe moving forward as quickly, or, would they be able to catch up? So then I redid the program in a couple of different ways, and then it became a 12-week program. And so I used 5-day challenges to launch each new round of local marketing mastery. So because it was a start and stop program, it was live with me, and it was for only a couple of months. I had to do live launches every time I was launching a new round. So it was March of 2020 and the very first week of March, and I spoke at Social Media Marketing World in San Diego, which was an amazing experience. Met so many great marketers, so many great entrepreneurs. I had just won a 2 Comma Club award from ClickFunnels about a month before. Also made some great connections there. And it was really kind of shocking to come home and, I had all this momentum that I felt like I was just ready to crush the year. And then as soon as I got back from San Diego and speaking at Social Media Marketing World, the coronavirus pandemic was in full swing, so to speak, and everything shut down about a week later. I didn't know what was going to happen with my business. I thought that it obviously could continue to go really well, or I also was concerned that, if local businesses are being forced to shut down, and, goodness knows how long they're actually going to be forced to shut down, and if they are going to incur all these additional costs with, different restrictions and regulations that they have to comply with, I didn't know if they were going to stop spending on their marketing. I didn't know how many businesses were going to stay in business. So that was really my main concern at the time. And that was not something I really had to worry about. In all honesty, I kept pushing. I was thrilled to see business owners, really trying to use that time that they had kind of a pause to focus on building their systems. And so my business almost tripled in 2020, which was amazing. And I definitely continued to work really hard. And so it was about mid-year 2020, maybe July or August, and I had started a podcast. And one of the people that I interviewed was someone that I knew from Molly Pittman. She is a friend of mine, and this was a good friend of hers. I had heard him on the Perpetual Traffic podcast, and so I wanted to interview him for my podcast. And through that podcast interview, I realized, okay, this is the coach that I need right now. His entire business model was focused on building a highly leveraged, very profitable business. So it was not about working more and hustling more to be able to reach your goals. It was about working less, being able to have a leaner team, but profiting more than you ever were able to profit with your previous business model. So I knew that that is what I needed. He also had a lot of experience starting and growing local businesses on his own and franchising those businesses, and the experience that he had as a marketer, but also the model that he taught and that he helped people implement was exactly what I needed at the time. And so this was the most significant investment I'd ever made in my business. It was much more than I ever thought I would be comfortable paying for a coach. But I felt very confident that it was the right decision for me, for what I needed to do in terms of shifting my model, reducing my working hours, and really just marketing my knowledge and what I taught in a different way. And it was probably the best business investment that I have made thus far. It was something that I committed to and decided, whatever he tells me to do, I'm just going to do it. And he instructed me to change the model of my group program to a 12-month program that did not start and stop. So this was something that could be sold over and over again, bringing new people into the program. Also, the structure of the way the recorded content and the resources were packaged and delivered within that program was something that we worked on to really make it a process where you do still have the opportunity for live calls 2 to 3 times a week, but that you don't even actually need them. The goal is to make the pre-recorded content and the resources so easy to understand and so tailored to exactly what someone would need that you could do everything you need to do without ever hopping on a call. Granted, I think most business owners understand that there's so many things that are specific to you and your unique business that you can't get from pre-recorded videos or resources. You need someone to help you understand how to tailor that to your specific business and help you deal with your specific challenges. And that was really, something that I always felt was probably the biggest differentiator between my program and a lot of others is how heavy the live support actually was, because I knew without a doubt that most small business owners and even marketers, they really struggled with the tech and understanding what to do and having a well thought out strategy from start to finish to build their digital assets around. Most people are just kind of, piecing it together, one thing here, one thing there, and they don't really flow with each other the way that they should. And a lot of times that's a big reason why it's not working. So I did want to make sure that I could hold someone's hand, even if they had zero tech or marketing experience in the past. I wanted this to be for someone who was a total beginner, a total newbie, someone who felt like they were tech illiterate, or for someone who was already running an agency and they really needed to level up their systems, their agency processes, their client communication, and their back end internal documentation and the way that they were managing their team. And it's really worked out to be a great fit for both groups. So that mastermind program that I joined, I'm still in that to this day. Such a great group of people. I was able to come back from one of our live events about a week ago and just blown away by the relationships that I have been able to really deepen with the other members of that mastermind group. Is one thing to be on calls with people, it's another to actually be in person, to get to talk about, anything and everything, and to really connect with them on a personal level. And I actually came away with a really cool partnership collaboration opportunity with one of the students, some really great new friends, people that we're going to be able to, brainstorm and bounce ideas off of each other. And we just feel like, we really have a group of people who's always got our back. And that no matter what you deal with in business, that you have someone there to help you through it. There is nothing that could be thrown on you that is going to, take over, that's going to make your business crash and burn. If you're willing to put in the work, if you're willing to participate, get on the calls, share what is actually going on with your business and the challenges they are having, instead of pretending that everything's perfect all the time, like so many people try and do, then, you can go so far and you can feel a confidence and a sense of peace of mind that you really can't get with anything else. And through that live event that I came back from, I really decided that this was the time to start preparing my own mastermind group for 2022. And I am very excited to do it. I've, as I just shared, had great experiences with other programs and in my current mastermind. And I think that this is going to be just the next level of service that I can offer a business who doesn't need help setting up or implementing their systems. Maybe they've already got their systems implemented, and they're already doing a pretty solid level of revenue. But as everyone listening knows, that doesn't mean that your challenges go away. That doesn't mean that your struggles or your confusion around certain things goes away. And sometimes it's really just the ability to get the idea of other people who are doing really well or have been through what you've already been through, and just ask them, what do you think about this, or is this the best use of my time or my resources right now? And just getting that feedback can be so incredible. But also as a Christian, I think that it's going to be a really great way to connect with other entrepreneurs who are strong in their faith, and it could be a place that really gives people the opportunity to talk about business in a way that you may not talk to a lot of other people about. So the Bible study that I started, maybe about 6 months ago with other marketers in the industry has really kind of shown me the importance of that, because we all are Christians. And while we're there for Bible study, obviously we're all entrepreneurs, and so many things that we're reading or thinking about tie into our businesses or our entrepreneurial journey. And also the way that we approach business is a little bit different sometimes. We value different things, or we think about different things, and it's great to have a group of people that you can talk to about things of that nature, and really talk about business from that biblical perspective a lot of times. So I think this is going to be an awesome adventure for 2022, the ability to bring together a group of like-minded entrepreneurs who are, doing well, but are not done serving, that are not done sharing their God-given gifts with the world, but really need a group of people behind them to help them navigate each and every step and each and every challenge that comes their way, as well as the ability to collaborate and partner and utilize different members of the group as resources for whatever it is that they're doing. So this is something that is going to be great for marketers or agencies. It's also something that is going to be great for small business owners and local business owners. And really, at the end of the day, so much of it just comes down to being a good fit in terms of personality and what you bring to the table and what you want to give back throughout this type of program. But it's going to be a very high touch mastermind. We'll have a lot of time together to build things, to brainstorm, to do hot seats. It's also going to include membership into my local marketing mastery mentorship, either for the business owner themselves or for their team, so that I can really train their team on all of the back end technical and the implementation, so that they don't have to do that. They can really focus on the strategy and the big picture ideas that they need to be focused on to continue to scale their business. It's also going to come with 2 live events. And that is something that, I'm a huge fan of personally. I have gotten so much from the retreats and the mastermind events that I've been to over the years. The relationships are probably the most significant thing. I mean, I've learned amazing things that I still use to this day. Always find really, really great content and new ideas that I want to implement, but I just don't think enough can be said about the actual relationships and partnerships and connections that you can build when you are in person with a group of people for several days, really being able to open up about what you're going through, what you want to do, what you don't want to do, and feel that you have a core group who can listen and understand. Because I think for a lot of us entrepreneurs, we may not have a lot of people in our everyday life that we can talk to about those things. I know that I don't. I am blessed to have my mom actually working with me. She has worked with me from the very beginning, and I don't know what I would do without her. So she understands what I'm dealing with on a business level. We get to talk about those things, which is great. And I can share those things with my husband, although, it's not necessarily something he gets as excited about as I do. But I don't really talk a lot about this with, my friends. I separate my business and my personal life, because I know that, my friends that don't run businesses, they just don't care, or they also just don't really understand what it is I'm even talking about. So it's great to feel like you have a group of people that you can talk to about all of those things that you may just kind of keep inside a lot of the time. And That's been such a great benefit of going to events like that. So really, really excited to get that started in 2022. But hopefully this has been, just cool to kind of hear my story and my journey and really understand why I'm so passionate about working with small businesses and local businesses and the changes that my business has gone through over the years to get me to this point. And, I definitely don't believe in like get rich quick schemes. You see so many people that are like, let me show you how to have $100,000 month in 2 weeks or less. And that's just not realistic. And I don't believe that, it's impossible. I do think that people who may grow that quickly are likely not going to maintain that momentum. It's also going to impact them negatively on a personal level if they're not really focusing on incremental, consistent growth. And so I just wanted to, share with you guys the ups and the downs and the transitions that I've made, and that, it took about 2.5 years, a little bit more, to get where I am today in terms of, my revenue. And I finally have that ability to work a lot less than I ever have before. And it's honestly been a little bit weird at times to not feel that I have to be working all the time. I was able to take off quite a bit around Thanksgiving. I am able to just take off and spend a day with my daughter if I want to. We bought a farm recently, so I went hunting with my family several times during a hunting season, and not worrying that anything's going to crash and burn, not even having that many obligations that I have to do. Obviously, I work full time because I love what I do and I want to continue to improve what I've already got. I want to continue to serve at the highest level that I can. But the ability to not have to is something that I've really only been able to achieve within probably the last, 6 to 8 months. So it's been really cool. I did fully transition away from the agency. I do not have, well, I wouldn't say fully. I do have a couple of agency clients that I still work with, but I'd call them grandfathered in or very unique situations where I don't really take on agency clients at this point. We do a lot of build packages. So I will do the strategy with someone, we'll pinpoint their offer, we'll set up all of their systems, all of their testing campaigns, make sure their ad accounts are good to go. We'll launch their ads, monitor, turn on, turn off, scale some ads up, and tweak the back end to make sure everything's working well. And then once it is, we kind of pass it over to them. All the heavy lifting's been done, and they can either manage that themselves, they can have an internal staff member manage it, or they can, join my mentorship on a monthly basis to be able to get ongoing support. And then that's really kind of the extent of a lot of the implementation that we're doing these days, which is a great model for a lot of businesses, because small business owners, especially, a lot of times it's just not even in their own best interest to be paying thousands of dollars a month to an agency on top of their ad spend and then really have nothing to show for it if that relationship ends. They don't own any of those assets. So my model's changed over the years. My audience has changed in a way to where we actually do have options to support marketers and agency owners that we did not have in the past. And my personal life has just changed a lot from just being this full-time employee and dreaming of owning a business to actually living my dream and buying a 61-acre farm and building a new house and, being able to really live some of that freedom that I always dreamed of financially and with my time. So hopefully this helps you get to know me a little bit better and really understand where I'm coming from in a lot of different ways. And I would absolutely love to work with any of you who may feel like, hey, I know so much more about what you actually do now. And I think one of those options could be a good fit for me. So I take a lot of pride in what I do. I believe in serving at the highest possible level, honoring my word, honoring my commitments, and really trying to be a servant leader in every way that I can be. So if that sounds like something that you do want to get involved with, and if this new mastermind group in 2022 sounds like it could be a fit for you, then I would love to have you apply. I will personally, get on the phone with you and talk through it and see if it is a good fit, because obviously it needs to work in both directions. So I would never just want to accept someone into anything that I truly didn't think would benefit from it. So if you do want to check that out, you can go to alliebloyd.com/mastermind, learn a little bit more about it. And again, I will personally get on the phone with you and talk you through it to see if it's something that might be a great addition to your 2022 marketing budget to help you get exactly where you want to go with a group of people that will be behind you no matter what. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this episode. It's been great sharing today, just something a little bit different. And I will see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.